I still remember the day he walked out of our home. It felt like a nightmare, but it was happening right in front of me. He stood at the door, his suitcase in hand, and looked at me like I was a stranger. "I can't do this anymore," he said, his voice cold. "You're useless. You don't contribute anything. I need someone who can help me build a future." The words hit me like a slap across the face. I couldn't understand. How had we gotten here? For years we had been a team, or at least I thought we were. We had dreams together, plans for the future. But apparently, he thought I wasn't doing enough. I had always tried to take care of the house, keep everything running smoothly, but it was never enough for him. I had a part-time job at a local store, but he said it wasn't enough. "You need to be more ambitious," he used to say. But no matter how hard I tried, nothing ever seemed to satisfy him. I stood there in shock, watching him leave. I didn't even know how to react. Should I beg him to stay? Should I say something? But all I could do was watch him walk away. I didn't feel anger at first, just a deep sense of loss. Our marriage had ended so suddenly, and I couldn't wrap my head around it. After he left, I didn't know what to do. I felt like I had lost everything. For weeks, I stayed in bed, staring at the walls. I didn't talk to anyone. I felt alone, lost, and confused. What had I done wrong? I couldn't stop asking myself that question. But as the days passed, I realized something. I had to pick myself up. I couldn't stay in this dark place forever. I had to move on, even if it meant starting over from nothing. So I started to rebuild. At first, it wasn't easy. I didn't have a lot of money, and finding a full-time job seemed impossible. But slowly, I found small things that made me feel better. I went back to school to learn new skills. I found a part-time job at a local cafe, and it helped me feel like I was doing something with my life. Every day was a challenge, but with each new step, I felt stronger. The first time I felt proud of myself again was when I got promoted at my cafe job. It wasn't a big promotion, but it meant something. It meant that I was capable of more than I thought. I had learned how to handle difficult situations at work, and I had started to take on more responsibility. I was no longer the woman who had been called useless. I was someone who was building her life from the ground up. And it felt good. Over time, I made new friends and started to enjoy life again. I joined a yoga class, something I had always wanted to try but never had the chance to before. I began to find joy in the little things, taking walks in the park, reading books, and even cooking new recipes. I wasn't just surviving anymore, I was living. And then one day, out of nowhere, I got an email from him. "Can we talk?" It said. I froze. My heart skipped a beat. I hadn't heard from him in years. What could he possibly want now? Curiosity got the best of me, and I decided to reply. I asked him what he needed. What did he want from me after all this time? A few days after I replied to his email, we agreed to meet at a small cafe in the city. I wasn't sure how I felt about it. Part of me wanted to forget everything about him and move on with my life, but another part of me wondered what had brought him back after all this time. Why would he want to talk now, especially after the way he had left me? When I walked into the cafe, I spotted him right away. He looked different. Older, maybe a little worn out, and his face showed the weight of the years. He was sitting at a table near the window, tapping his fingers nervously on the cup in front of him. I didn't know what to expect, but as I walked over to him, he stood up, a small smile on his face. It wasn't the confident, almost arrogant smile I remembered. It was a more humble smile, one that showed uncertainty. "Hi," he said softly, his voice sounding nothing like the man who had walked out of my life all those years ago. I took a seat across from him and just waited. I didn't know what to say. It felt like the old tension between us was still there, but there was also something different. He seemed nervous. "I never thought I'd hear from you again," I said, trying to break the silence. "Why now? After all this time?" He looked down at his hands and sighed, his shoulders slumping slightly. I've been through a lot," he began. I know I hurt you, and I can't take that back, but I need you to understand that I was wrong. Everything I said and did, it was wrong. I didn't say anything right away. I wanted to hear more. I wasn't sure if I should believe him, but something about the way he said it made me think he was being sincere. What do you mean wrong? I asked cautiously. You left me because you thought I was useless. I never understood why you said that, why you couldn't see what I was doing, even if it wasn't perfect. He nodded slowly, looking embarrassed. I was selfish, he admitted. I was so focused on what I wanted, on climbing the ladder, that I never saw how hard you were trying. I took you for granted, and I regret it every single day. There was a pause, and he took a deep breath, his eyes meeting mine. I've lost everything since then. My career, my relationships. I realized that the life I built didn't mean anything without someone by my side. And that someone was you. I didn't understand that then, but I do now. I listened quietly, trying to process everything he was saying. It was a lot to take in. For so long, I had blamed myself, thinking maybe I wasn't enough. But now he was saying that he had made the mistake, that it was his fault all along. The truth was, I had been doing just fine without him. But hearing him talk like this, I wasn't sure what to feel anymore. I didn't want to open old wounds, but I also didn't want to be cold. I had moved on, but did I really want to completely shut him out? So why are you here? I finally asked, looking at him curiously. Why contact me after all this time? He looked a little uneasy, his eyes darting around the room as if he was searching for the right words. I need your help, he said quietly. I've hit rock bottom, and I can't seem to get back up. I heard that you've been doing well. I've been trying to get a job, but it's been hard. I was hoping you might be able to give me a chance. A job, anything. I need to start over, and I don't know where else to turn. I sat back in my chair, completely stunned. After everything, after the way he had walked out of my life, now he was asking for my help. My mind was spinning. Part of me wanted to say no, to remind him of all the hurt he caused. But another part of me wondered, was this his way of showing that he had changed? Could I trust him? You want me to give you a job? I repeated, still trying to process it. After everything that happened. He nodded, his face sincere. I know it sounds crazy, but I don't have anyone else to ask. I'm not asking for charity. I just need a chance to prove that I've learned from my mistakes. I'll do anything, I swear. I sat there for a moment, thinking. It was a lot to ask, but maybe, just maybe, this was his way of trying to make things right. It wasn't going to be easy, but could I find it in myself to help him? I sat there, trying to think about everything he had said. His words were heavy, and it was hard to ignore the fact that, after everything, he was asking for my help. The same man who had once made me feel worthless was now asking for a chance to start over. I didn't know if I should be angry, confused, or maybe even sympathetic. It wasn't like I had forgotten the past, but part of me was wondering if this was his way of apologizing. I don't know, I said slowly, my voice quiet. This is a lot to take in. After what happened, I don't know if I can just forget all of it. He looked at me, his eyes full of regret. I'm not asking you to forget. I know I can't take back the past, but I've learned, and I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make things right. I just need a chance. I don't expect you to do anything for me. I just need to prove that I've changed. I felt a rush of emotions. Part of me was still angry, and part of me was wondering if he was telling the truth. But another part of me remembered how much I had struggled after he left. I had worked so hard to build my own life again, to find my confidence. The idea of helping him now felt like it would somehow pull me back into a life I had worked so hard to escape. Why didn't you ever come back sooner? I asked. You left so easily, like I didn't matter. Now, all of a sudden, you want to make amends. Why now? He shifted uncomfortably, running his fingers through his hair. I wasn't ready before. I thought I could do everything on my own. that I didn't need anyone. But after losing everything, I realized how wrong I was. I thought I had it all. Money, success, everything. But it didn't matter when I was alone. I made terrible decisions, and it cost me. Now, I don't want to keep making the same mistakes. I stared at him, trying to figure out if he was being honest or just saying what he thought I wanted to hear. Part of me still wanted to say no, to remind him of how he had left me, how he had made me feel like I wasn't enough. But something in his eyes made me hesitate. Maybe he was different. Maybe this was the change he had promised. "So, what do you want me to do?" I asked, my voice calmer now, though still unsure. He smiled slightly, almost shyly. "I don't expect you to do everything for me. I just need a job, a chance to prove myself. I know it won't be easy, but if you can help me get back on my feet, I'll show you that I'm not the person I was." I thought about it for a long time. Offering him a job felt like a big decision. It wasn't just about helping him. It was about facing my past. Could I really do this? Could I offer him the chance he was asking for, knowing how he had hurt me? I couldn't deny that part of me wanted to see him struggle, to feel the consequences of his actions. But another part of me understood what it felt like to need help and to be given a chance. Finally, I took a deep breath and spoke. "Okay," I said quietly, "I'll help you. But I need you to understand that this is your chance to prove yourself, not just to me, but to yourself. If you take this opportunity, you have to give it everything you've got. No shortcuts." His face lit up with relief, and I could see the gratitude in his eyes. "Thank you," he said, his voice filled with sincerity. "I promise I won't waste it. I'll work hard, and I'll prove that I'm not the same person I was." For a moment, I wasn't sure if I had made the right choice, but then I remembered how far I had come. I had fought so hard to build my life again. And maybe, just maybe, helping him would be my way of showing that I had truly moved on. I wasn't doing this for him, but for me. I wanted to prove to myself that I had the strength to forgive. Not forget, but forgive. As we left the cafe together, I couldn't help but wonder what the future would hold. This was a new chapter, one I had never expected to write. But I knew that whatever happened, I was strong enough to handle it. The first few days after I agreed to help him were awkward, to say the least. He started working at my company, and I could feel the tension whenever I saw him. We didn't talk much at first, and I was careful to keep things professional. I didn't want to make the mistake of getting too close, not after everything that had happened. But there was something about him now. He seemed different, more humble. It wasn't the same man who had walked out on me all those years ago, but still, the past was hard to forget. His first few days on the job were a bit rocky. He wasn't used to the work environment, and I could tell he was nervous. I tried to give him simple tasks, things that would help him ease into the job without feeling overwhelmed. I didn't want to throw him into something too difficult right away. But despite his nervousness, he always did his best. I could see that he was trying, and it was that effort, not his past mistakes, that started to change my perspective. One day, about a week into his new role, I watched him handle a situation with a client. There had been a misunderstanding with an order, and the client was frustrated. While most people might have panicked, he stayed calm. He listened carefully to the client's concerns, apologized for the mistake, and promised to make it right. His ability to stay composed in such a tense moment impressed me. It was the first time I felt proud of him in a long time. Later that day, I pulled him aside to talk. I could see that he had been putting in the effort, and I felt like he deserved some recognition. "You handled that situation really well," I told him. "I didn't expect you to stay so calm under pressure. It shows that you're committed to making things work." He looked a little surprised but smiled. "Thanks. I've learned the hard way that staying calm is the only way to get things done. I've had a lot of practice in the past, just not in a good way," he admitted with a small laugh. I couldn't help but laugh too. He was starting to sound like a different person, someone who had grown from his mistakes. From then on, Things started to improve between us. We talked more at work, discussing tasks and ideas. I could see that he was genuinely trying to make up for the past, not just by doing the job well, but by showing respect for the opportunity I had given him. It wasn't easy for me to let go of the hurt from before, but I was starting to see the change in him. It wasn't an instant fix, but it was progress. One afternoon, we had a staff meeting where everyone was encouraged to share ideas for improving the business. I was surprised when he spoke up. At first, he seemed hesitant, but then he started explaining a new approach to one of our projects. His idea was simple but effective, and everyone in the room listened attentively. By the end of the meeting, the team was buzzing with excitement about his suggestion. It was clear that he still had a lot to offer. After the meeting, I went to his desk to thank him. "That was a great idea," I said, genuinely impressed. "I think it could really make a difference." He smiled, a little shy. "I'm just trying to make up for all the things I messed up before." I nodded, understanding what he meant. He wasn't just talking about the job. He was talking about his whole life, the mistakes he had made, the people he had hurt, and now, the effort he was putting in to fix things. Over time, I found myself starting to trust him again, not in the way we once were, but in a new way. I was learning to forgive, not because I was forgetting, but because I saw the effort he was making. I didn't have to carry the weight of the past anymore. I was starting to let go, and it felt freeing. I knew that helping him wasn't just helping him, it was helping me too. Our work relationship slowly grew into a friendship. We would chat during lunch breaks, share stories about the past, and talk about our goals for the future. It wasn't perfect, but it was something I hadn't expected. As the weeks went by, I began to realize that the man who had once walked out of my life wasn't the same person anymore. Maybe he was no longer the person I had once loved, but he was someone I could respect. I still wasn't sure what the future held for us, but I knew one thing for sure. I had done the right thing by giving him a second chance. It wasn't about us getting back together. It was about giving both of us the chance to grow. The weeks continued to pass, and things at work started to feel more comfortable. I had given him a chance, and he was proving himself more and more each day. His confidence grew as he continued to make solid contributions to the team. But there was still this underlying tension, something unspoken between us. I wasn't sure if it was just me, but every time our eyes met, I felt a strange pull, like the past wasn't fully behind us yet. One day after work, we found ourselves alone in the office, finishing up some last-minute tasks. It was late, and the only sound was the quiet hum of the fluorescent lights above us. We had been talking about work all day, but now there was an awkward silence between us. I glanced at him, and he looked up from his computer screen, his eyes meeting mine. For a moment, neither of us said anything. Then he broke the silence. "You know, I've been thinking," he said slowly, his voice quieter than usual, "about us and everything that happened. I've been wondering if maybe we could be friends." The words caught me off guard. Friends? We had gone from being married to strangers, and now he wanted to be friends. Part of me wasn't sure if I was ready for that, but another part of me was curious. Curious about how he saw things now, about whether he truly understood the weight of what he had done. "I don't know," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "It's complicated, don't you think? After everything that happened, it's hard to just pick up where we left off." He nodded, looking down at his hands for a moment before meeting my eyes again. "I understand. I don't expect anything from you. I just thought, maybe we could start fresh, in a way. I don't want to go back to the way things were, but maybe there's a way forward." I wasn't sure how to respond. Part of me still carried the hurt from the past, and I wasn't ready to forget how badly he had treated me. But there was something in his voice that made me think he was being sincere. Maybe, just maybe, he had truly changed. "I need time," I said finally. "I can't just forget what happened. But maybe, over time, we can find some kind of understanding." He smiled, a small but genuine smile. I can wait. I don't expect things to change overnight. I just want to be better. For myself, for you, for everyone. I nodded, feeling a mix of emotions. Part of me was still holding on to the pain, but another part of me was starting to see him in a new light. Maybe it wasn't about us getting back together. Maybe it was about finding peace, in whatever form it took. The next few weeks were a mix of small moments, talking about work, discussing ideas, and gradually becoming more comfortable around each other. It wasn't easy, and there were times when I could feel the old resentment creeping back in. But slowly, I began to see the man who sat across from me as someone different. Not perfect, but someone who was trying. And that was enough for me. One afternoon, he came to me with a suggestion. "I've been thinking about the future," he said. "I want to help you expand the business. I have some ideas, and I think we could make it even better. I know I haven't earned your full trust yet, but I want to prove myself, not just as a worker, but as someone who cares about your success." I was taken aback by his words. It wasn't the kind of idea I had expected from him, especially given our past. But there was something in the way he spoke that made me believe he was genuinely invested in helping me. For the first time, I started to see him not as the man who had left me, but as someone who was working hard to make up for his mistakes. "I appreciate the offer," I said, thinking about it carefully, "but I need to think about it. This isn't just about work for me. It's about trust, and trust takes time." He nodded, understanding. "I get it. Just know that I'm here to help, whenever you're ready." As time passed, I began to see him more clearly. He wasn't the man I had married, and he wasn't the man who had hurt me. He was someone new, someone who had learned from his mistakes, and was genuinely trying to make things right. It wasn't easy, and there were days when I felt unsure about everything. But each step forward, no matter how small, was a step in the right direction. I didn't know what the future held for us, but I was beginning to realize that the most important thing was not what had happened, but what we did with the present. And for the first time in a long time, I felt hopeful about the future. The more time we spent working together, the more I began to see a side of him I hadn't known before. He was still the man who had once walked out of my life, but the person in front of me now was different. He wasn't perfect, but he was trying. And that made all the difference. I had never expected things to change between us, but somehow they were. It was a slow process, but it was happening. One morning, he came into the office with a fresh idea for improving our marketing. He had spent the weekend researching and came up with a plan to target a new group of clients. At first, I wasn't sure about it. It felt like a big risk, and I wasn't sure I was ready to trust him that much. But as he explained his idea, I could see the thought and effort he had put into it. His passion was undeniable, and it made me wonder, could he really help me grow the business? "You've been putting a lot of work into this," I said after he finished his presentation. "But it's a big step. Are you sure this will work?" He nodded. "I believe in it. I know it's a risk, but sometimes taking risks is the only way to move forward. And I'm not asking you to take that risk alone. I'll be right there with you, every step of the way." I thought about it for a moment. I wasn't used to taking risks, especially after everything that had happened. But there was something in his voice that made me want to believe in him. Maybe it wasn't about us trying to fix the past, but about moving forward together. Maybe this was a chance to start fresh, not just in work, but in life. "Okay," I said finally. "Let's give it a try, but I'm not making any promises. We'll take it one step at a time." His face lit up with relief and excitement. "Thank you. I won't let you down. I'll work as hard as I can to make this work." Over the next few weeks, we worked together to implement his plan. It wasn't easy, and there were many late nights spent brainstorming ideas and tweaking strategies. There were moments when I doubted if it would work, when I questioned whether I had made the right choice. But every time I looked at him, I could see how committed he was. He wasn't doing this for me. He was doing it for himself, for the chance to prove he was more than the man he used to be. As the months went by, We started to see results. The business began to grow, and the new clients started to come in. I could feel the shift in the air, a sense of accomplishment that we were building something together. It was a feeling I hadn't had in a long time, and though there were still challenges ahead, I was starting to believe in the process, in the changes we were both making. One evening, as we wrapped up another long day, he looked at me with a smile. "I can't believe it's actually working," he said. "This is everything I hoped for." "It's not just you," I replied, feeling a little proud of myself. "We did this together. It wasn't just your idea. It was our effort." He nodded. "You're right, and I'm so grateful for that. You gave me a chance when I didn't deserve it, and I won't forget that." His words caught me off guard. I had never expected this kind of gratitude from him. The man who had once made me feel so insignificant was now thanking me for giving him an opportunity. It was strange, but it felt good. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't angry at him. I wasn't holding on to the past. Instead, I felt like we had both found a way to move forward. The next few weeks were filled with more progress. The business continued to grow, and our teamwork strengthened. I could see that he wasn't just working to fix his mistakes, but to build something better. He was becoming the kind of person I could respect. Someone who was committed, hardworking, and willing to do whatever it took to make things right. Though we weren't exactly friends yet, and we didn't talk about the past much anymore, I could sense that we were both learning how to trust each other again. And that, for me, was the first real step in healing. We didn't need to go back to what we were before. What mattered was what we were now. We were partners in business, and maybe, just maybe, there was more to our relationship than I had originally thought. The future was still uncertain, but for the first time in a long time, I was starting to feel hopeful. Maybe with time, we could rebuild what we had lost. Or maybe we could create something new, something even better. As time went on, the business continued to grow, and so did the bond between us. It was strange. After everything that had happened, after the years of silence and hurt, I was starting to see him in a new light. Not as the man who had walked out on me, but as someone who had truly changed. He wasn't perfect, but he was trying. And that made all the difference. He had a way of looking at things now, a way that made me believe he was genuinely invested in fixing what he had broken. One afternoon, we were sitting in the office, reviewing the latest client feedback. The atmosphere was calm, the hum of the air conditioning the only sound between us. I glanced up at him, noticing how much more comfortable we had become around each other. We were working well together, and it felt almost natural, like we had always been in sync. "We've come a long way, haven't we?" I said, breaking the silence. He looked up from his laptop and smiled. "Yeah, we really have. I never imagined things would turn out like this. When I first walked in here, I had no idea how to even begin making up for everything I did. It's not easy," I said, my voice soft. "But I think we're making progress. I can see that you're different now. You've worked hard to prove that." His smile faded slightly, and he leaned back in his chair. "I know I've made a lot of mistakes. I still feel like I don't deserve all of this chance, this opportunity. But I'm going to keep working, keep proving that I'm better than who I was." There was something in his eyes, a mix of regret and determination. It made me pause for a moment, and I realized something. I had spent so long focused on what he had done wrong, on the hurt he had caused me. But now, I was beginning to see the person he had become. I could feel the old anger fading away, replaced with a quiet sense of acceptance. I wasn't ready to forgive everything, but I was starting to understand that he was trying. And that was enough for me. For now. "You've come a long way too," he said, his voice quiet. "I know it hasn't been easy for you, but you've handled it all so well. I respect that." His words surprised me. I had never expected him to say something like that. I had spent so many years feeling like I wasn't enough, like I had to prove myself to him. But now, he was the one acknowledging my strength. It was strange, but in that moment, I felt a shift in our relationship. Maybe, just maybe, there was a way forward for us. "Thanks," I said, smiling faintly. "It hasn't been easy, but I think we've both learned a lot." We sat in comfortable silence for a few moments, both of us lost in our own thoughts. The past was still there, hovering in the background, but it didn't feel as heavy as it once had. We had moved past the worst of it, and now we were building something new, something different. Later that day, as we wrapped up for the evening, he turned to me. "I just want you to know," he said, his voice serious, "I'm not doing this for any other reason than to prove to myself that I can be better. But I also want to make sure you know that I appreciate everything you've done. For the business, for giving me a chance. I don't take it lightly." I looked at him, feeling a wave of emotion wash over me. It wasn't love, not in the way it used to be, but it was something else. Respect, maybe. A quiet understanding that we had both been through so much, and we had both come out on the other side stronger. "I appreciate you too," I said quietly. "It's not just about business anymore. It's about trust, and I think we're both starting to rebuild that." He nodded, a look of relief crossing his face. "Yeah, I hope so." As we locked up the office and stepped outside into the cool evening air, I couldn't help but think about how far we had come. We had both made mistakes, and we had both paid the price. But now we were learning to move forward, not just as business partners, but as people who had finally started to understand each other. It wasn't perfect, and maybe it never would be, but it was something real. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like we were on the right path. Time passed, and the changes between us became more noticeable. We were no longer just colleagues. We had become partners, not just in business, but in a new kind of understanding. The walls that had once stood between us, built from years of hurt, mistrust, and anger, were slowly starting to crumble. It wasn't easy, and there were still moments when the past would resurface, but we were learning how to navigate it. One morning, after a successful meeting with a new client, we were walking out of the conference room when he turned to me with a smile. "We did it. That was a big win." I smiled back, feeling the pride in our accomplishment. "Yeah, we did. It feels good, doesn't it?" He nodded, his smile fading slightly as he looked at me. "I've been thinking a lot about what I've done in the past, and I can't help but feel like I don't deserve all of this, all the chances you've given me, everything we've built." I stopped walking for a moment, turning to face him. His words took me by surprise. After everything we had been through, after all the time spent working together, I hadn't expected him to still feel this way. "You've earned it," I said softly. "You've worked hard, and you've shown me that you're committed. We've both made mistakes, but we're both trying to fix them. That's what matters." He looked at me, his eyes filled with gratitude. "Thank you," he said quietly. "I don't take it for granted. I just hope you know how much this means to me." His words lingered in the air, and for a moment I found myself looking at him differently. Not as the man who had walked away all those years ago, but as someone who had truly changed. I had given him a chance, and he had used it to prove that he could be better. And though there were still moments when the past seemed too heavy to shake off, I realized that I had changed too. I had learned to forgive, to trust again, and to see things from a different perspective. That evening, as we sat in the office, finalizing the details of a new project, he looked over at me, his expression thoughtful. "I've been thinking," he began, his voice hesitant. "Maybe it's time for me to move on. I've learned everything I can here, and I think I'm ready for a new challenge. I don't want to overstay my welcome." His words caught me off guard. I had always known this day might come, but now that it was here, I wasn't sure how to react. Part of me didn't want to lose him as a partner. We had built something great together, and I had come to rely on him in ways I hadn't expected. But another part of me knew that he had grown, and maybe it was time for him to take the next step. "If you think it's time, then I support you," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "You've come so far, and I believe in your ability to succeed. Whatever you decide, I want you to know that you'll always have a place here, no matter what." He smiled, his eyes filled with emotion. "Thank you. That means more than you know." We sat there for a few moments, the weight of the decision hanging in the air. But as I looked at him, I realized that it wasn't about whether he stayed or left. It was about the journey we had taken together. We had both learned so much from each other, and whatever happened next, we would carry that with us. In the end, he decided to move on, taking a new opportunity that would help him grow even more. Though it was hard to see him go, I knew it was the right choice for him. We had come full circle, and it felt like we had both finally found the peace we had been searching for all these years. As I watched him walk out the door for the last time, I couldn't help but feel proud. Proud of how far he had come, proud of how far we had both come. We had learned to forgive, to trust, and to rebuild what had once seemed lost. And in that moment, I knew that whatever the future held, we had both found a way to move forward, stronger, wiser, and ready for whatever came next.